Hello, thanks for joining me for this webcast. My name is Chris McBain. I am the Technical Marketing Manager here at 3D Systems for GibbsCAM. Today I'm going to go over what's new in GibbsCAM 12. I'm really excited to share this with you. There's really big things that are new, and there's a ton of little enhancements that are going to really affect everyone's productivity. If during this you have any questions, go ahead and just put it in the chat window and someone will answer it, or I'll answer it afterwards. We'll go over a little question and answer. But first I wanted to kind of go over the bullet points of what I was going to cover today. There's so much, I'm not going to be able to cover it all as far as every single little feature that's new, but I want to kind of hit the bullet points. And I wanted to start with the updated interface. Now I'm not going to say a new interface because it's really has that same look and feel that we're used to. So speaking of what we're used to, we can go ahead and look at our screen here and we can see this is GibbsCAM. It's been like this for 30 years or something like this. It's something that users have become very used to, and we're really proud of it because it's very, very productive. But we knew it was kind of time for an update, maybe a time for a little rehash, but we didn't want to just change things to change things. We wanted to go ahead and update it. So here's the updated interface. So you can see that it's really modernized. If we look at the icons, those of us that have used GibbsCAM for a long time, you can see that there's still very familiar icons and very familiar setups with the tool tabs and the operations tabs and things like that. So development's objectives. So really they had 5 objectives when they went through this new updated interface, and really what the key was they didn't want to change it just to change it. They wanted to improve it. They wanted to modernize it, but really keep that same look and feel. But there's more than just looks, right? I mean, they wanted to improve efficiency. So they wanted to make it easier for you to use and more efficient for you to use. They also wanted to have a smooth transition for legacy users, but also make it really easy for new users to learn and make it look and act a little bit more familiar. And the way they did this really was through customizability. Development really made this so you're able to customize the interface and make it look and act the way that you need it to apply to the things that you do every day, whether it's geometry creation, mold making, surfacing, 2-axis MTM, and things like that. So let's go ahead and go over just kind of the overview. So not only am I going to go over the new interface, I'm going to go over a lot of these points too. And one I'm going to talk about is interface customization. So you can drag and drop new icons. You can make your own toolbars. I'm going to show all of this in the demo, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what I'm going to cover. There's also multi-part machining I'm going to cover. This is really easy now, right through the document control dialog. You can set up grids and equal spacing and all that stuff. It's super easy, and I'll cover this too. Volume turn, this is another thing that we're including with all of our turning seats. A few years ago, we decided to just include for free volume mill wireframe with our milling seat. So we're going to include volume turn. Solid surfacer, there's a bunch of stuff here. I'm going to go over a couple. There's automatic fixture avoidance. There's also a new algorithm that enhances the toolpath a little bit. It's actually pretty slick. Let me show you that too. And then last but not least is I'm going to show us a 5-axis. There's so much new every year with 5-axis. I really have to just kind of pick the top 3 or 4, and that's what I did here. Again, if you have any questions about this, please, you can ask here, or you can reach out to us or your local reseller. The other thing that I wanted to talk about really quick was we're now offering free training through our partner Cogniz. With this free training, you have access to videos and walkthroughs, tutorials for the basics of GibbsCAM. It's going to help people get up and running really quick. It's good for a refresher for anyone out there that wants to just kind of go back through the basics, see if you're quote unquote using it the right way. Hey, in my opinion, the right way is you're making parts, but if you want a little bit more efficiency, you can go here. Now, if you want more advanced training, they also offer that too. You can check out the pricing and stuff on their website, but the basics, again, to get somebody up and running, things like that, it's all included now for free. And there's a link right inside of GibbsCAM, and I'm going to show you that in a second. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the live demo. Let me go ahead and open up GibbsCAM 12 here. Okay, so you can see that there's a lot of things that are new in the interface. So I'm just going to cover some of the big ones and explain it a little bit. So just in case anybody out there is a little confused about it or a little off put by it, it's really great. I've been using it for a while, and it's at the point now where it's hard for me to go back to GibbsCAM 2016 because I've made this so customized and so easy to use. It's hard to go back. So this is what it's going to look like when you guys open it up. Let me show you a couple things. So we have these files, edit, modify. This is all very familiar, but you can see as I go through these, you can see now that each command has its own cool little, pretty descriptive actually, icon. But as we click through this, you can see that I get the same results. Like we didn't change it from top to bottom. It's not brand new where, oh wait, where do I put this in? All of the subsequent menus are all the same. So we have views, whole features, solids, all that stuff. One thing I wanted to point out was when we open a file, how cool this is now. So if we say file open, here's a list of our recent parts that we've opened. So here are part files. Here's the package file that I've recently opened. And also here are the folders that they're in. So let's say you're working on a specific project that's in, job 324-858 folder, and you never remember which one it is. It's going to be listed right here. And if there's a part that you open a lot, you can actually pin it. You can actually pin it over here. So let's say, for instance, I'm going to go ahead and use this part a lot. I can pin this file up over here. So if there's files that you are constantly opening, maybe it's a template file or something like that, you can just come right up here, pin it, open it, and you're good to go. It'll go right there. I think that alone is awesome. But we're going to go through a lot more stuff here. You can see here that here's the document control dialog, the view palette. I'm going to go ahead and open the view palette right now real quick. You can see it's over here on the right, kind of winds and unwinds. Now this might be in the category of customization, which I'm going to go through right after this, but let me show you something really neat. So here's the wheel. If I hold down Control and I hover over it and I roll my middle mouse button, you can see that it makes it bigger. Now, for the young guys out there, this might not be a big deal because it just takes up more space. But for us older guys that need glasses, this might be a really great addition so we can see it. And again, you can pull this. I'm only showing one screen, but you can pull this onto your other screen if you'd like to open up some room. So let me go ahead and make that a little smaller again. I thought that was really neat too. So just little things like that are new. Here's our coordinate system pull down. I'm going to show you a really neat feature with that. Okay, so there's our menu, and this is basically what we're used to seeing, except everything that when you open it up, when it first comes to default, these are the icons and commands that you're used to seeing over here on the right-hand side, right? Starting from the top down is, document control, view, coordinate systems palette, tools, cam, all of these are what's on the right-hand side. Now we also have this menu here that we're calling the taskbar. Now this affects the way that you see the part, right? Show geometry. Again, these are all the things that we're used to seeing. Show stock and origin. Here's the nice thing. Now we have pull down. So if I want to see the grid in different ways, I can just pull down and select it without having to scroll through like I have in the past. There's show. Here's the silhouette, the slicing silhouette. Render features, hidden, all this other stuff. So this is all things that we're familiar with. It's just a little nicer. You can actually set the transparency of this. You can see that it lights up as I roll over it. Again, right here is over here on the left is the tool palette. Right underneath that, operation. This is stuff that we're all used to. So this is where we're going to go ahead and make tools. And you can see if I double click here, it's the exact same menu that we're used to. It's just a matter of it's a little bit bigger, it looks a little cooler, it's a little bit more modern. Now, one thing that you might notice with the new interface is the lack of the machining palette here. Like I want to rough it, I want to finish it, I want to do certain things. It's not there anymore. Well, what happened to it? Well, I'll show you. What we figured out is people were moving that all around and it really took up space and it didn't need to be visible all the time. Really, once you pick your tool path, you want that to go away. So what we did, or I said we, I'm taking credit for this, is really development. I'm saying the royal we, like we at GibbsCAM, did was we included it right down here in our process tab. So I'm going to double click and you can see here is all of my milling operations. Now it shows milling because in my document control dialog, I have a mill set up. If I change this, let's say to a Swiss machine, for instance, and I double click here, you can see that not only do I get milling, but I also get turning and my utility ops. Let's go ahead and change that back. Perfect. So while I'm here, let me show you another cool thing. So here's our view palette, right? Top view, side view, right view, isometric. But let's say I didn't want this on my screen, but I still wanted to have that functionality. Follow my mouse down here to the bottom left. If I hover over this coordinate system, over the world coordinate system, you see that I have all of the same functionality that I have right inside of that view palette. So I can either access it constantly down here, or I can go ahead and open that view palette and put that wherever I want it. I'm finding more and more that I use it that I'm using this functionality down here the most. All right, so there's, you can rotate it around, all that other stuff. All right, so let's go back to making the toolpath. So I'm going to double click right here in my process tree, or not tree, but my process palette list. So let's say I just wanted to do a roughing routine. So as soon as I click on the roughing routine, it says, okay, go ahead and select a tool. Now this will list all the tools that I have in my tool list. This is great. This keeps me from dragging and dropping, pulling down all these things. It's right here. But let's say I wanted to make a new tool. Let's say I didn't want to use a 1/4 inch. I wanted to use, I don't know, an 1/8 inch. I can actually add a tool here and say, you know what? I want this to be an 1/8 inch tool. And I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And you can see that it just went ahead and added it to the next available tile in my tools. So you can access tools that you have, or you can make new tools here. And then the rest of it is exactly what we're used to in GibbsCAM as far as making a toolpath. Okay, so here's a really nice thing that I found that development added was the location of the do it and redo it buttons. So they're actually in 3 places now. We have the do it right inside of the process window. So I can just go ahead and say do it. There's my toolpath. I can say redo it right inside of there. It's also down here right by my process tile list. So here's my process over here on the left. Here's do it and redo it. Here's another cool thing that I really liked is you can actually right mouse button click, and on a right mouse button you can click do it and redo it. So there's my do it and redo it. So it's actually in 3 places. The right mouse button click, it was explained to me by development, is really great if the way you program is you create your process, you make all your offsets, your tools, everything, and then you pick the geometry. That way I can come here, pick the geometry, not have to go all the way back across my screen and click do it. I pick my geometry, I right mouse button click, and I click do it. And it's that easy. This is one of the big time savers in the new user interface. I shouldn't say, again, I'm going to say new just because I'm excited about it, and it's new because it's updated, but really it's an updated interface. All right, so last but not least, when I talk about the changes in the interfaces, down here on the right-hand corner. So here is our new processes. So if we come down here, this is the status bar that we're used to seeing both up on the upper right-hand corner in the older versions of GibbsCAM, and also when you do a 5-axis or a advanced 3-axis toolpath, the processing time that it takes. And we'll see this as I go through some of the more complex tools. But again, we were finding that a lot of people were just kind of moving this out of the way. They still wanted to see it, but it was big and it was cumbersome. So we just added it down here to the bottom. You can pin it to always see it, or unpin it to not see it. Now, the trash can, right? We're all used to that trash can down here. You can see there's pretty little down here. We've figured out other ways to get rid of toolpaths and things. Here, for instance, here's a clear button to go ahead and clear any process that we have. Over here in our actual operations, just hit delete and it deletes them. That's another way. Or again, you can, if you'd like to, go old school and drag it down and drag it down to the trash can. You can see here that, I'm attempting to delete a tool that I have a toolpath on. GibbsCAM is smart enough to warn you. It's really nice. So that pretty much sums up the new interface as far as the menus, the pull-down menus, and the icons. Now I want to go ahead and talk about customization. All right, so how to customize this. This is really easy. This is something that we're probably used to with other softwares that we use on a daily basis. I'm going to come up here to my toolbar list. I'm going to right mouse button click, and I'm going to click on Customize Toolbars and Menus. There's a lot of really great things we can do inside of this customization, and I'll start from the top and work down a little bit. If I come up to my existing icons, I can right mouse button click on it and say, you know what, I don't need text. I know what the document control dialog looks like. The view palette, you know what, I can do, I want a smaller icon there because maybe I don't use that a lot. We can go small icon with text. We can turn off the text so we know that that's our view. So we can actually make this a little bit sleeker, a little bit more streamlined for things that we use every day. I want to cover one thing. I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit. You're able to, once you modify everything, you're able to come down here and say Save Customization Profile. I recommend that the first thing you do when you get this is go ahead and save the default. Oops, I don't want to save it. I want to load it. So I'm going to go ahead and just load my customized default just to get it back to where it is, because you're going to find you're going to start messing around with this stuff, and maybe you misplace something, or you know what, I want to go back to what it was, so I'm just going to go ahead and go to my default. And you can see when I load that, everything's back to the normal thing. So we can save our customized menus, and I'm going to show you that in a second, how that's really going to benefit. But right now, let's talk about icons. So let's say that I don't really use the Operation Manager very much, but I do use Tool Manager. I can just take this, drag it down, and drop it, and it goes away. I can get rid of Tool Manager too. So let's say I wanted to get rid of this entire toolbar, right? It's called Summaries Toolbar. I can actually close this out. I can go to my toolbars and click or unclick what I want to see. Here's my MTM, here's my CAD, here's my actions, all of these things. So let's go ahead and turn all of these on. You can also do this. Let me go ahead and close out customization just by right mouse button clicking here. Again, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my summaries. Maybe I'm not going to use MTM today, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. So it's that easy to turn them off and on. So let's go ahead and talk about adding toolbars. So I can come to my toolbar and I can say, you know what, I want a new toolbar, and I'm going to call this, I don't know, surfacing. So here it is right here. I can drag it down here. You can see it says surfacing on it. I can grab it by its little handle, put it back up here. So now I can go to my commands, and you can see there's oodles and oodles of commands here. I can actually search for the word surface, and you can see that it automatically starts filtering through. So on the surface ones, usually what I use is simplify. I'm just going to drag that up here. My surface modeling tab for sure. I want to trim and untrim my surface. I don't really use export very often or revolve. I do use union a lot when I do surfacing. So now I have this custom menu up here that's called surfacing. It's on, you can name it whatever you want, Joe's custom toolbar, or you can have it per job if you want. I can take this down and drop it and put this wherever I'd like it. You can see if I grab these little dots right here, we call these a handle. I get a blue outline on the left, the right, and the bottom of my screen. I can actually park that over on the side of my screen. So this is really made to be customizable for the way that you want to use GibbsCAM. The icons that you use every day, you can drag them, you can have them right at your fingertips. You can make it smaller, bigger, whatever the case may be. All right. So let me show you a couple examples of some saved custom custom interfaces that I've created. So I'm going to go ahead and load a customized profile. So I made this one just for fun, that kind of mimics the original layout that you all might be used to in GibbsCAM. So you can see on the right hand side, right, the document dialog, geometry creation. Here's my cam, all the stuff, right? We're used to this. This is nice. But you can see even with these big icons, you know, it looks okay. It just, you know, to me, again, I really enjoy the newer interface. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to load my default back up for the rest of this demonstration. Just before I move on to the next thing we're going to talk about, which is multi-part, I just wanted to show just one other. There's so many little things in here that I really enjoy working with. It's hard for me to fit them all into this webcast, but I wanted to show you this. Remember in the old school, that's old school, right? It's the one right now, the one before this, but the older version of GibbsCAM, you had to open up your operations list and then your program. Here we've combined that all into one button. So we can say, okay, this is the part, I opened it up. Let me rotate it around a little bit, check it out. Okay, I'm ready to program. I can just go Tools Cam. There's everything I need right there. That's really neat. As I go through this, I'm sure I'm going to remember some other things I want to show you. So I might go back and show you a couple other tips and tricks as I go through the other parts of this webcast. So let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and go File, Open, and I'm going to use this file here to show the multi-part. Here we go. In GibbsCAM 12, being able to duplicate entire programs is really easy. It's really, really easy. Let me show you on this part. You can see on this part, I've got a few toolpaths here. You know, here's my volume mill for those holes, and here it is for that middle part. All right, so I have 3 toolpaths, 2 that use tool number 1, 1 that use tool number 2. What I want is I have an array of these down the table in fixtures or in vices or whatever the case may be, and I want to take that toolpath and duplicate it. That's all. It's that easy. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my document control dialog here. And then right here in multi-part, I'm going to click that. So this is usually set to none. We can come here and say, yeah, we want to do part duplication. We can just go in one direction and we can say we want to offset, I don't know, we'll say 10 inches in X, and we'll say 4 parts, make it a nice even number. Now here's the great part. I don't need to recalculate, redo anything. I just change that number, and now when I go to OpSim, it's all right there. Let me go ahead and fit this to screen. You can see that I use this palette down on the bottom left a real lot now. So there it is. Like, we don't have to recalculate, regenerate anything. It just goes ahead and duplicates it. Let me show you a couple other options here. Let's say we wanted to make a grid. So not only do we want 4 instances in the X, but we also want to duplicate this 2 in the Y because it's a little bit more narrow. We'll just say 5 inches. And here we can say which order we would like to machine these in, Y first, X first, or shortest. Shortest really isn't going to apply here because it's a grid. I mean, the shortest is pretty obvious. So let me show you X first. And again, this is great. I don't have to redo it. All I do is I change those settings and it automatically goes through and changes it. So you can see that it's going ahead and doing the X direction first. So let's go ahead and open that up again. Let's say I wanted to do Y first, and let's say I just wanted to go tool by tool. So instead of changing for each part, I don't want to complete each part, I just want to go back and forth. Let's go ahead and rewind it. So you can see it does all of tool number 1. It doesn't go X first or Y first, it goes back and forth, and then it goes comes back and does tool number 2 and finishes it all up. So we have a lot of control now, or you guys have a lot of control. We all have a lot of control over multi-part. How many parts we're going to do, what positions they're on, what the tool is going to do in between those. Another thing, traverse options. You want to do an off part location or just use the part clearance. And then we can also go in here and define if they're not equally spaced or they're not in a grid, we can go through and assign them here. We can also, this is also a very quick way to set up your tombstone management system if you're using our TMS system. It's right here, multi-part system, TMS. We can set up our tombstones right here. Again, if you have any questions about tombstone management, if you guys are using tombstones, I haven't seen this yet, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty great stuff. Go ahead and give us a call or call your resellers. So, all right, let's go ahead and go back to part duplication. So that was multi-part. Let's go ahead and fit this back to the screen here. Let's go ahead and switch gears really quick and talk about some turning. I showed you how you can open files through here, but just to let you know, again, we don't want to make you guys change the way you totally do things. We wanted to give you options of how to do things. So I can go ahead and just click open and just navigate right to the file where all my files are, just like before. So a few years back, we included volume mill with all of our seats of milling in GibbsCAM for free. You got a wireframe volume mill for free. We are continuing that with volume turn. With every seat of turning, we are going to include the capability of using volume turn. So what is volume turn? How is it going to benefit you? Let's talk about that. I'm going to go ahead and open this toolpath, right? This is something that we're used to. Just a back and forth, real basic roughing with a finish pass. Whether you're doing it in GibbsCAM or at the machine, this is what we're used to. One of the problems with these tool paths are these sharp corners where it's taking the cutter and driving it in and burying it and then coming down and then doing the same over and over again. This really decreases the life of the tool and may cause you, especially in a harder material, to slow down your speeds and feeds. This is what volume turn looks like. What volume turn does, just like volume mill, is it controls the engagement of the tool. It controls the volume of the material that's being removed. And this is what it looks like using these curved tool paths. So let's go ahead and look at that. And like I said before, I'm gonna show you some cool things as we go through this. Now, I have this little pull down. It says, how would I like to see this? I can do an operation sim, machine sim, legacy CPR, and I am gonna just go ahead and I'm gonna say, you know what? I wanna do a tool sim on this. So for those of you that aren't familiar with tool simulation, everybody has it. It's been in the software for a really long time. The nice thing, I use this a lot if you've seen any of my videos, because I like to see how that tool kind of goes back and forth across the part. So we can play it and then we can scroll and see the actual tool path. And we can see what volume turn does. It takes the tool and instead of burying it in a corner, it curves upwards and then comes back and gets as close as it can with that round cutter. Now, volume turn will only work with round insert cutters. Just a little note there, but because it's a round insert cutter, it's easier to control the actual load on the tool and the volume of material that's being removed. This is a really huge thing. And again, if you have turning with GibbsCAM 12, you will get volume turn at no charge. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the new stuff in Solid Surfacer. The first thing I would like to talk about is the automatic fixture avoidance that we've included in the new Solid Surfacer. Another cool little tip and trick here with the new interface is at the top of each one of these tile lists, you'll see these two arrows. If you look up here in the upper right-hand corner, I'm going to show you over here on the tool list what those do. They're at the top of the bottom. You can actually scroll down one by one, or if you hit the find first, it'll shoot you all the way up to the first one. Remember, you used to have to like right click and say find tool 1 or go to first tool. Now it's just these cool little arrows that'll let you scroll or just zoom to the beginning or end of your tile list. So let's talk about the fixture avoidance. So we can see here that I have a solid surface. This is an advanced 3D toolpath. I did adaptive pocketing, and I only selected the model to be machined, and I designated these toe clamps as fixtures. And we know that they're fixtures because they're red. This is actually a good time to show you this little improvement too. If I go up to File and then hit Preferences, this has all been redone also. You can see there's a nice little tree here. Instead of the tabs going across the top and what it used to look like. I barely even remember what it used to look like. But it's really easy to navigate through now, but it's not totally different. The things are still in the same scenario: interface, machining preferences, display. So I can hit Edit Display Settings here. We can go colors, and you can see our fixtures are red. So that's how I know it's a fixture. The other way too is I can right mouse button click on it, hit Body Type, and you can see that it says Fixture Display Only. Or I can say Show Properties of, oops, I didn't select that, I selected this over here. So I can say Show Properties of Selected. And we can see that it's Fixture Display Only. So just by labeling those as fixtures, when I run this toolpath, it's going to automatically go up and around, or over in this case, those fixtures. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. Let's go ahead and look at it. We can look at it in Tool Sim, why not? Okay, great. So let's come back. Let's kind of zoom back and forth in a little slider and see what it does when it comes. It just clears it. See right about there? So instead of going ahead and plowing through your clamp, which would be super bad, you can see it actually does this neat little move and moves around it. Now I intentionally made that clamp a little bit above the part to show you that it's actually takes into account per level how it's actually going to go through. With this adaptive toolpath that I have, it actually comes up again on another level. You can see it right here, and actually avoids that clamp also. Really easy to do now. You can use this a bunch of different ways. I've been playing with this. Sure, you can use it obviously with clamps and tables, but if you're doing multiple solids, or you can create a solid inside of your part to have kind of like a stay away area, as I would call it, or an avoidance area in your part using a solid. I'm starting to run a little low on time, so I want to hurry up and show you some of the really great stuff that's available in 5-axis. I'm going to go ahead and hit File. I know that they're in this folder here. Let's go ahead and hit 5-axis. Again, there are many, many things that are new enhancements in the 5-axis part of GibbsCAM. I'm running really late on time here. I've only got about 10 minutes left, so I wanted to show you the top 3, at least in my opinion. These are the ones that I would have used in the shop a lot that would really affect me. So let's talk about porting first. So now when we go to surface paths and we do port machining, we actually have the option to rough out using adaptive clearing. So this is, let me zoom in here. This is what we're used to when we do porting. This is kind of a weird example of porting, but imagine that hole went through and curved around, and this is a port. This is what we're used to. Well, now instead of just offset, we can actually do adaptive pocketing inside of ports when we rough out ports for port machining. So there's our adaptive pocketing. You know, especially if you're running those lollipop cutters. You know, I always had a tendency to, I won't say broke tools, but maybe they didn't run as long as they should have with those skinny necks on them and things like that. This will definitely help prolong your tool life and also machine that out faster. So that's what's new in porting. Another really cool thing is when we're morphing between two lines. Let me show you that on the back of this part. So this is something that I would run into a lot. What I want to do, let me go to surface paths here. So this is morph between two curves, and the first curve and the second curve. Whenever the first curve is longer than the second curve, it ends up kind of like wrapping around that second curve. And this example, I mean, it's a good example because you can definitely see it, but it gets worse if this bottom curve was on some cattywampus angle and, it wraps around and does some really weird stuff. That's changed now. So if we go to surface edge handling right in the surface paths, we can say extend edge curve. Click OK and come up here and hit redo right inside of the window. And you can see now it actually does morph. You can see it's going from that curve to that straight line without it wrapping around that bottom line. Again, just to show you, that's surface edge handling, extend edge curve. That's the one. Okay. Now, I should say last but not least, but this is definitely not the last thing that's new, but this is probably the last thing in 5-axis I'm going to be able to show you guys. And this has to do with axis control when you're doing weird surface, I shouldn't say weird, more organic surfaces like this that have a lot of directional change in them. The normals are kind of all over the place. And this is actually going to show better in Machine Sim. So let me go ahead and open up Machine Sim on this. All right. Let me show you what I have here. This is just a pretty straightforward surface path, right? Parallel cuts on surfaces. I've picked this surface to machine. This is pretty standard bread and butter stuff when it comes to 5-axis. Let me go ahead and hide a little bit of this machine so we can see it a little bit better. All right. So if I just play this, and again, surfaces, parallel cuts, I go to tool axis control, 5-axis, stays normal to surface. So I want it to stay normal to surface. So let's go ahead and play it and see what it looks like. So we can see that there's a lot of action there, right? There's a lot of movement, which, if you want to show off how much your machine can move, great. But, maybe this isn't the most efficient tool path, and you might want to save a lot of that motion for when you really need it. So if we come down here again in axis tool control, we can say, you know what, GibbsCAM, figure out a common direction. And let's figure out a common direction per contour. So I'm going to go ahead and redo this. So now we can see that it's definitely minimized the motion. It's still doing a true 5-axis. It's kind of 5 plus 2 in a way. It's making a move, then moving, making a move and moving. So it's actually picking a common direction per move. So let's do all contours. Let me show you what that does. So this is a real easy way to figure out kind of the average angular setup on a part if you just want to do 3-axis, right? Because this is basically a 3-axis tool path on that surface. I'll back up this machine so you can kind of see what's happening here. So it's tilted, but it's not, you don't have any table movement or rotation. It's just, it's applying that 3-axis toolpath to that. You don't need to figure out what the optimum angle is. Oh, let me create a coordinate system and go off of that, or rotate or manual rotate or something like that. You can just use, you know what, Gibbs, figure out the common direction for all contours, and let's go ahead and post that out and make our machine do it in more of a 3-axis scenario. So those are, in my opinion at least, the top 3 things that are new in 5-axis. There's a bunch of other ones. There's some engraving enhancements as far as the way it steps over in engraving. There's some other enhancements when it comes to 2D profiling, projection, things like that. Check it out. It's all in the What's New document. If you can't find it, or if you want a very detailed list or demonstration of what's new, go ahead and reach out to us or your local reseller, and we'll figure it out for you. So just to finish up here, I wanted to show that free training that we're offering now through our partner Cognis. If you want access to this, you just go up to the Help menu here, and then you go to online training, and it's going to open up a link, and it's going to open up your web browser right to Cognis's website. And you can see here that it's going to open up to the what's new overview and all the videos. These go over pretty much in way more detail of what I covered today. So if you want a little bit more detail about what's new, you could look at these. If you are interested in other free courses, we come over here up in the upper left-hand corner and click on all courses. We can see here that they had a $350 a year subscription to Production Milling. That's now absolutely free. So if you want to brush up on your skills, or you're onboarding somebody and you want to get them up and running quickly, you have access to this for free. Also, you can see here's the what's new. And then last but not least, there's the premium subscription, which goes over in detail the more advanced options inside of GibbsCAM. I'm going to take some time now to answer some of the questions that came through during the webcast that didn't get answered. It's still not too late to ask questions. If you have any questions that you would like answered right now, you can put them in the little text box in the GoToMeeting. If you're more comfortable talking to somebody or emailing, that's great. Go ahead and contact your reseller, or go ahead and contact us at GibbsCAM. If you're watching this as a recording, this will be recorded and posted on the internet for all of eternity. If you guys want to see it, just go ahead and click it. If you're doing that right now, just please feel free to reach out to us. So let's go ahead and check out the questions.